So you briefly spoke about this last week. Good old Crisis Core, the remake / remaster that came out towards the end of last year. We Steam shared and I inhaled this game over the last week. Not for any other reason than it actually is kind of short. If you mainline it, it took me about 10 and a half hours to reach credits.
Probably a lot shorter than you remember it being.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, but this game it's not without its, portable restrictions and slight issues, but I still deeply love this game. And I think it is a must play for anyone who has any sort of love for Final Fantasy VII, whether that be the original or the remake or both. Like if you've never played Crisis Core, it just gives you so much more context to, what follows in Final Fantasy VII, why Cloud is the way he is and why he has certain characteristics and traits, etc., etc. But even so, if you don't know, Crisis Core is based, it's a prequel to Final Fantasy VII that follows a character named Zack, who is in Soldier trying to do his best to become a hero. Like that's really just the story in a nutshell, which in itself sees you interacting with certain characters like good old Sephiroth. This is before he goes off the edge. And new characters like Angel and Genesis, who is the antagonist, who will not shut up about Loveless and will not stop speaking poetry and nonsense. But the game, like I mentioned last week, it's funny how Final Fantasy VII, the original, was a turn-based game. And Crisis Core came along a few years later and it flipped that on its head. It said, we're going to keep the same sort of magic and feel of combat, but it's all active battle now. You can dodge, you can attack, chain together attacks. And
far more of an action game.
It's far more of an action game. And that to me feels like Final Fantasy Remake looked at this game as one, thought, how can we sort of blend the two? And that's what we got with Final Fantasy VII Remake. It's really fun. Like I enjoy playing this game. The combat's great. But like I said earlier, it does definitely have things about it that make you realize, like, yeah, this was on a handheld many years ago. Like the story is very much a thing of there's a bit of dialogue and then there's action, like all the time. It's like, here's a line of dialogue, oh no, bad guys, okay, we're gonna fight now. Okay, dialogue, oh no, bad guys, we're gonna fight now. Which I don't know if that's necessarily just bad design, but I think it is. It kind of was designed obviously for the PSP, which had its limitations. And you want to try fit a nice long RPG onto a small system with a very small space on it, on those UMDs. And I mean, I think you touched on this last week as well. Those missions are very much short, also made to feel portable and played on the go. Like there's a lot of side missions.
Especially the side missions.
They take a handful of minutes to get through, and there are tons of them. So like for better or worse, if you're going to play this game, just be aware that it is a portable game that has just been modernized. But I am grateful that it is now available to a wider audience, because it was only available on PSP forever, but now it's available on just about all the modern platforms. And like I said, I think it is a must play for anyone who's even remotely interested in Final Fantasy VII, because it's a fun story.
I love how anime
character.
This is.
It is. It's like I was saying to you before we recorded. It's weird how it straddles this line between it's super serious at moments and then super ridiculous in others. Like it's the only way I can explain it is it's just very anime, and that's not a bad thing. Like I say that because I find it very endearing how you can bounce between the two so seamlessly. But yeah.
I think you mentioned this last week, but like now that you've played it, how interesting is it that this combat, as limited as it is, given the time that it came out, but you can definitely see where Remake looked at this and was like, oh, okay, we need to do something similar. Like, because Remake is so much closer to this combat than it is to like any sort of Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah.
Well, it's so good. Yeah.
What's interesting is that I wasn't aware that they'd made combat changes so that's why I think this game, it's like, is it a remaster, is it a remake? And it's like, it's this weird
they
blend
did make
of the
some
two.
substantial changes.
So like one example that comes to mind, you get your support material, which is essentially, it's not magic, it's you doing a special attack. Like there's one called Assault Twister, And I don't think this was in the original game, but you can buff those using that support material if you do a couple attacks before you use it. It makes them stronger.
Yeah.
And weirdly enough, about halfway through the game, when you get the Buster Sword, you get access to kind of like a heavy attack mode, which is very similar to Final Fantasy VII Remake, when Cloud can switch to that other stance. Remember, to do like, he moves slower, but he can do stronger attacks. This has that, but in a slightly different way. It's like they've changed things here, and it feels more modern in that sense, which is very cool. It's not you playing the game and like, okay, this combat is what it is. They are adding things as you go, which I really appreciated.
I mean, I guess they were kind of aware that like a lot of people would have played Remake here, so like things that made sense there that would make natural sense to add or tweak here. Just it's a win-win. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's a good. I mean, it's a much more straightforward game than Remake. In you have a very limited subset of things you can do with regards to like materia selection and equipment. So it is much more focused on just like action, but there's still like depth to a lot of the combat, which I think was there in the PSP game, but it's made I'm more aware of it now, probably being a much more mature gamer. That sounds weird.
Oh yeah, it's funny how we remember things through like tinted goggles, where like a good example is I remember this game being much longer, but I guess back then absolutely. I did do a lot more side quests. What was funny for me is that I went and I looked at howlongtobeat.com. I was like, okay, cool. How long does it take to beat the original? And the average time was like 18 hours. I was like, oh, okay, that's quite long. Then I looked up this game. It's like average time to beat like 11 hours, 12 hours. I was like, I wonder, I don't remember there being a sprint button in the original. I could be wrong, but here you have an actual sprint button, and the load times are obviously a lot quicker.
I can't remember at all. Like, so it's like, been so long.
I'm like, damn, it shaved off that much playtime off it. It's just interesting. But yeah, it's a good time. If play it not expecting this fully fledged open world RPG. It's very linear. You're running through quote unquote like tunnels or linear paths, if I can say that, with encounters throughout. Side quests, you're not running to a side quest, you literally load into an arena for all intents and purposes, and you have to kill the monster at the end of it to complete the side quest. Like, it's very basic. This game would be premium on the Switch deck, on the Switch deck, the Steam Deck.
The Switch deck. I love the Switch deck.
Make it happen.
But I think with Final Fantasy VII, is it Rebirth? What's the part 2?
I think it's Rebirth. Reunion.
It was Rebirth. Reunion? Yeah.
No, this is Reunion. I don't know.
Yeah, this is Reunion. Yeah, Rebirth. Something with an R. With it coming out end of the year, start of next year, who knows, winter. I think this is a really clever strategy from Square to like bring this game out now, because if you've played Remake, you'll know that things aren't following the same sort of path as the original game, and that does mean could potentially mean some interesting things for Zack and his implications in the story. So having this game that doesn't necessarily do the same thing with its narrative, it's still very much the same story as the PSP game. Yeah, it gives you an introduction to Zack and who the hell he is, and I think that's really important for Final Fantasy VII, the remake series going forward.
He's a good character.
And like you said, it's just good that it's off. Like, you can play it without needing a PSP, because it's insane that it was there, stuck on there for like the good parts of the past like 15 years. It's crazy. Yeah. So
when I feel old,
it's a good time.
Remember playing this game as a teenager.
Oh, absolutely. I know exactly where I was when I finished playing. I was like in a car on the way to Durban for some holiday in like grade 9 or 10. And playing the end of this game.
You finish this game.
And like holding back tears like in the car. Just like,
you were that meme of Wolf from Stranger Things, like looking out the window crying.
100% just looking out the window like,
why does it hurt so bad?
Yeah. 100%. It hit me out of nowhere. I did not expect it to. And I was like, what the fuck? This game, what is it? What's happening?
The thing is, I knew that, I mean, if you played Final Fantasy VII, you would know that's going to happen, but it still hits. You're like, man.
It hits hard, man. Yeah.
Well,
also just made me like Cloud a lot less. He is literally just Zack.
Oh, yeah, on that, it is cool that so Zack's voice actor feels off to me just because I'm so used to
Yeah, he
the
sounds
original
bizarre.
on the PSP. But what is a nice on the flip side is that when you meet Cloud and Tifa and Aerith, it is all the voice actors and actresses from Final Fantasy VII Remake, which is very cool.
Which is cool.
I do like that. Yeah, play this game if you itching for more Final Fantasy VII following Remake, and you don't feel like playing the original. I think this is a nice middle ground to, like you said, give you some context to Zack, who you probably saw in Remake. Like, who the hell is this? Like, what is going on
a lot of
here?
people played Remake for the first time with
what
that
the hell's
context.
going
Like,
on? Yeah.
why is this guy? Why does he keep popping up in flashbacks with Aerith?
Yeah, and it's going to blow their mind when things happen at the end of this game. Like, but it doesn't happen at the end of Remake.
Yeah, I'm so curious to see where they're taking that. Yeah, because the end of Remake suggested some things, so we'll leave it at that.